So it was months and months ago that we were kind of racking our brain, and this was kind of back in the spring, about what is the scholar in residence and how do you handle the moment of time that we find ourselves in. And Alexa, where's Alexa right now? Alexa's right back there. This is all of Alexa's brainchild because the world has changed so dramatically since October 7th, is that it's a different time period of not just sitting in an ivory tower and thinking, let me tell you my theory on what's coming next, because post-October 7th, the world was impacted online in a way, and I think that none of us had ever seen before. And so we went to the Zeph family and they said, absolutely, let's make this happen. And so that was kind of where the dream began, to bring Chen out here. Because Chen is an incredibly powerful voice in the global discourse. He's a writer, a speaker, an activist who has spent years on the minefield of social media. And so we were intentional about bringing him to speak to Emanu-El right now, when we're just a few weeks away from commemorating the 1-year anniversary of the unprecedented horrors of October 7th. Now, the attacks on Israel that day, it changed our world as we know it in ways that I could never have imagined how different we are today in Israel, how different we are in America, how different we are in the global sphere today than we were on October 6th. And the scars that have been left behind from the ensuing months of war, they continue to ache in the collective consciousness of all who dream for peace and justice in the land. Now, Chen has been a beacon of light in the face of all of that darkness. Now, for many in this room, and for hundreds of thousands of people worldwide these past 11 months, when they're looking for light, they've looked to Chen. His voice has refused to let history be forgotten. He tirelessly has worked to combat anti-Semitism and champion Zionism and Israel, even while he criticizes Israel and its government for its failures. Chen, he does all of this on social media. And it's a space for a lot of Jews that can feel really scary and unsafe, but where Chen has been a digital trailblazer. His online presence has become an invaluable platform for education and advocacy. In an era where misinformation spreads rapidly, Chen has used his digital voice to cut through the noise, presenting nuanced perspectives. Now, his posts, they go beyond sound bites. They challenge narratives and assumptions, and they spark important conversations around Israel and around Palestine. They spark conversations on identity, the history of Jews in the Middle East, and anti-Semitism. So please welcome our fall scholar in residence, Chen Mazzig.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Shabbat shalom. Thank you so much, rabbis, for having me here, for inviting me to be the scholar in residence for this weekend. It's such an honor to make my first Bay Area appearance this year at such a historic synagogue with an amazing community. I'm really privileged. A little about myself. I'm a Jewish advocate, an author, and a senior fellow at the Tel Aviv Institute, and I fight hate speech online. I work every day battling the tides of anti-Semitism, both off and online. My family came to Israel in the early 50s from Iraq and Tunisia. They were refugees that were forced out of those countries because they were Jewish, and they came to Israel with nothing as refugees, and raised an amazing family that I was privileged to have growing up. I grew up in Israel. I served in the Israeli army for 5 years as a humanitarian officer in Gaza, the West Bank, working with Palestinian civilians. And today I live between Tel Aviv and London. And even though it took me an hour to get through immigration in San Francisco airport, I had to promise them that I'm not going to eat your cats and dogs. It was worth it to be here with all of you tonight. Because we are one Jewish community, and it feels essential to me to be here with all of you, and to meet with you, and also to hear your perspectives and points of view. I want to speak about pain, something we've all been dealing with a lot in the past almost a year since October 7th. And especially the pain in the last 2 weeks since the execution of the 6 hostages, which include American-Israeli hostage Hirsch Goldberg Polin, Zichrono Livracha, that has rocked our communities. Sometimes I start to become so numb to all the bad news, but hearing about the death of those hostages and seeing the videos from the tunnels where they were when they endured their unimaginable last few months alive, ripped back open the wounds of October 7th, as I'm sure it did for a lot of you. So what is pain? Well, there are different kinds of pain. There's the kind of pain where you feel when someone just slapped you in your face and it fades away quickly and you forget about it in a few days. And then there's pain from a more serious injury, like a broken leg that hurts immensely during the moment and aches for the days to come. And then there is pain that you feel from a catastrophic injury that will never heal, a fatal pain. Without a doubt, the pain of October 7th felt fatal to all of us. A pain that never heals, that takes over everything else and signals the end. The days following October 7th only seems to confirm that. We were mourning the pain we didn't think could get worse, and somehow it did. The events that have unfolded since October 7th, when the war was started by Hamas, have been horrific. We stand here today acutely aware of the hostages that are still held in captivity and the pain that this has caused our community and the families. But what made it even worse was how the world reacted. The reaction to October 7th was horrific. People took to the street to celebrate our pain and say that we deserve it. Posters of our loved ones would be ripped apart just days after they were hanged. And as time went on, it only seemed to get worse. It was how we realized that the world hadn't fully changed since the Holocaust or the pogroms before that. Today, as many of my non-Jewish friends, and your friends probably too, would say that they would have stood up for black rights, they would have stood up for civil rights, they would have stood up for women's rights, they would have stood up for LGBTQ rights and for Jews during the Holocaust. Many of them had this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do it and to prove that they would, and they didn't. Instead, they supported a populist hate movement and became the cowards that many of them are. But nobody's calling them cowards because they can get away with it by claiming that they are tearing us down to stand up to others, that we're the enemy and they're bravely defending the underdog. But they aren't brave at all. There's nothing brave standing against one of the most persecuted people in history. And in addition to all of our pain, we are also aware of the pain that Palestinians endure. Videos of Hamas beating and executing dissent started surfacing from Gaza. News report would interrupt by Palestinian civilians screaming at the camera, cursing Hamas for their pain. and wishing them to disappear from the world. Children crying in fear as missiles flying overhead from all sides. The enormous surplus of suffering from every direction can really feel like the pain you feel when you die. And in the face of such adversity, we have witnessed an inspiring surge of voices speaking up, becoming more active, and standing proudly with Israel, humanity, and the Jewish people. It is moments like this that the true strength and resilience of our community, both Jewish and non-Jewish, comes to light. Mine, and more importantly, your presence here today, is a testament to the unwavering support and solidarity that binds us all together. At a time when a hateful populist movement is gaining the support of tens, if not hundreds of millions of people around the world, the most courageous act is to not join the mob. Like David, we are standing against Goliath. While others try to define what Zionism means to us, we know what it means. And it is the safety and security of Jews in our ancestral homeland, and not the suffering of anyone else. And if they are angry at us reclaiming our indigenous homeland, reviving our ancient language, and fighting to live as free people, well, that's their problem. As history taught us time and again, joining the many does not make you inherently right. It was never popular to stand up for Jews, but it has always been right. And here we are, the ones who endure that the hope, the spirit, and the determination of the Jewish people remain unbroken. I'm reminded of the story of the prophet Ezekiel, who saw a valley of dry bones, a heap of skeletons. God asked him, "Son of man, can these bones live?" Ezekiel replied, "God, you alone know." God said, "Son of man," before he said that. And then the bones came together and grew flesh and skin and began to breathe and live once more. And then God said, "Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. They say, our bones are dried up. Avda tikvatenu. Our hope is lost. Therefore say to them, this is what God says, my people, I am going to open your graves and bring you back up from them. I will bring you back to the land of Israel." It was this passage that Naftali Herz Imber alluded to in 1877 when he wrote the song that became Israel's national anthem, Atikva. The phrase, "Od lo avda tikvatenu," our hope is not yet lost. Little could he known that years later, 1/3 of the Jewish people would have become a valley of dry bones in Auschwitz, Sobibor, Treblinka, and Bergen-Belsen. Who could have blamed them for saying, our bones are dried up and our hope is lost? And yet, a mere 3 years after standing face to face with the angel of death, the Jewish people, by proclaiming the state of Israel, made a monumentous affirmation of life, as if it had heard across the centuries the echoes of God's words to Ezekiel, "Ve'eveti otchem la'admat Israel," I would bring you back to the land of Israel. And as the angel of death appeared again on October 7th, we turned to God and His promise. And today, God is bringing us out of the valley of death once more, with the heroic rescue missions of the hostages to which we have all borne witness. The stories of the bravery of the IDF that, if happened in biblical times, would have been defined as nothing short of a miracle. But it is the Jewish spirit that is a miracle in and of itself. In the words of one of my colleagues at the Tel Aviv Institute, 91-year-old Holocaust survivor Lucy Lipner, who was so moved when she saw rescued hostage Noah Argamani reuniting with her father a few months ago, she said to me, "This is an affirmation that never again will Jewish children be snatched from us without our people turning the entire world to bring them back home. And we must continue to do everything we can to bring every single hostage back from hell." By doing this, we honor that affirmation of life. We remember those who have fought and continue to fight for Israel's right to exist and thrive. We acknowledge the pain and suffering, but we also celebrate the unyielding hope and the relentless pursuit of peace, justice, true justice. In a time when so many people take to our streets, right here in America, and are chanting that Israel has no right to exist, or that Israel is the reason that anti-Semitism exists, we respond to them, it is your anti-Semitism that is the reason why Israel must and will forever exist. Let us carry the spirit forward, inspired by the resilience of our ancestors and the courage of present-day heroes. Never again is not just a slogan for us. It is an action that we take every day. Together we can ensure that Od lo avda tikvatenu. Our hope is not yet lost and will never be lost. When I look at all of you today, it is clearer than ever that what our community is enduring is not the pain of death, but the pain of a broken bone. It hurts, really does. But it is not the end. Just as God promised it to Ezekiel, just as the state of Israel rose from the ashes of the Shoah, just as Israel's heroes sacrificed everything to return our hostages, so too does the Jewish community around the world stand up today to seemingly endless wave of hate. And you know, the thing about broken bones is that after they heal, the side of the break becomes the strongest part of the bone. While the world tells us we are hated, we've come together as a community whose bonds are stronger than ever. We've strengthened our resolve to be unapologetically Zionists. We've strengthened our resolve to end the violence between Israelis and Palestinians and ensuring a better future for both of them. We've strengthened our resolve to be proudly Jewish, no matter what those who hate us say. We are hurting, but we are also healing. The pain of a break that is hurting but healing nonetheless is none other than the pain of choosing life. Jews throughout generations have endured so much pain and heartbreak. We face the angel of death time and again, and yet we have always chosen life. It's what we do. Being Jewish and alive today is a miracle. We'll always remember the pain of the break, but we will come together stronger than ever before. And we will, as we always have, overcome. Shabbat Shalom.